Hello and welcome to this episode of Hospitality Talks. And it's a very special episode of Hospitality Talks because it is number 100. And I am thrilled to have James Hacon, who is the managing partner at Think Hospitality, join me. Welcome, James. James was actually the first ever guest, so it made perfect sense to me that he was the 100th guest as well. James, for anyone out there that doesn't know you or think hospitality, do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me back, Katie. 6 years ago, pretty much. I think in 2 weeks since we recorded that. So I'm not
You.
quite sure where time goes. But yeah, my name's James Hacon. I'm the managing partner of Think Hospitality, and we are a business that works pretty globally and really focuses on two things: helping groups that are involved in food, beverage, restaurant, bars to maximize their potential and grow and strategize. And then we work with people who don't see food and beverage and hospitality as their core business to really make the most of what a brilliant industry we are. And for a lot of the time, get into it for the first time.
Now, we obviously met through working together in the UK and various industry events. And I want to talk in a little bit about your experience abroad and the trends that you're seeing sort of outside of the UK. But just to start with, just because I can't let it slip by without sort of talking about 6 years ago when we were first in that lockdown. And actually, it was my husband that said to me, "Why don't you do like an online interview with some people from hospitality?" And I think that you got an 11 o'clock at night late phone call one Friday, and I said, "Do you fancy doing something with me on the Monday?" And so much has changed since then, hasn't it? I mean. Uh, the idea that pubs, bars, and restaurants were closed still kind of boggles my mind a little bit. What are your sort of memories from that time, that sort of beginning bit of the lockdown and the pandemic?
I mean, I think it was nuts, right, for all of us. I think that what became quite clear quite quickly, just from kind of, as you know, I grew up in this industry. I mean, my whole network is in this industry, and I think whilst those of us that were involved in my more executive type roles might have been used to spending some time at home at least or behind a desk. I mean, the people who work front of house, particularly in the venues, the lifeblood of our sector, it became clear very, very quickly for that they were going to struggle immensely, right? I mean, the idea of going from being super high energized to suddenly stopping
Mm.
was really tough. And I think that, I mean, you and I had lots of conversations quite early on, as a lot of us did. And I think for me, I recognized that the consulting business that we were running and the investments that we had, for the most part, were going to be paused or stopped, and that we were going to start from scratch. And on that basis, I would have a lot of time, my team would have a lot of time. There were a number of us that had a lot of time and a lot of energy to give. I think that's why at that point we obviously started Hospo Live, and that was a
Yeah.
big part of that whole time. And for me, it helped get through massively. I also at that point had a 3-month-old baby, so that certainly helped me
Yes,
in
you
terms
did.
of my energy at the time. But and I just think as we went through that whole really, I mean, direct 2 year process, and I mean how it dragged through it, I honestly can't think that I sit in a strategy meeting now where there's still not reference to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it resulted in this whole weird paradigm where actually it feels like we've kind of lost a lot of time that potentially is a lot more than just that year or 2 years of actual direct output of the pandemic. And I think for some subsectors in our sector, I mean, casual dining obviously had the 2018 kind of casual dining collapse already. It then came into COVID. I mean, and frankly, I'm not sure it's ever really recovered. So, I mean, it's an interesting, I think probably the wrong word. I mean, it's been a horrendous time to be in hospitality, but out of the back of that, you still get the incredible positivity and remarkable camaraderie that we see as a sector, and people just pulling through entrepreneurship and forever pivoting. I mean, it's, if anything, it's been humbling and incredible to watch and have play a small part in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's interesting how you talk about, still being in strategy sessions, easy for me to say. And that sort of COVID conversation still coming up, still influencing policy and strategy and the decisions that we're making because of the different sort of trends that came in around that time. And of course, travel was incredibly limited. And a lot of the work that you do is abroad. What I'd really like to focus on is what you're seeing outside of the UK from a trend perspective, that you think we might start seeing more of over here in the UK.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting question. It's something that our team talk about a lot. I mean, we worked in 22 countries last year. We've got 6 partners in 5 different places. And I think that it therefore means that there's a lot of kind of toing and froing and looking. And it's interesting that first and foremost, I would say that traditionally we really saw trends moving eastwards. That was always the way that it worked, is that things would start in the US, even if it was coming from Asia, it would often come through the US into the UK and then on to Europe and the Middle East from there. I'm not saying it was ever easy to predict. I mean, none of us have balls, clearly, but I would say you could definitely see patterns that were emerging. I think what's been really interesting in the last 3 to 4 years, and I mean, really set up for a decade before that, is that the Dubai effect has just changed that whole dynamic entirely. I mean, you have got now one of the world's most forward-thinking, dynamic cities sitting to the east of us and in the Middle East, which really helps set the market and bring a lot from all over the world, where you're not getting that kind of general linear approach of where trends are coming. And I do think that what makes Dubai very special as a city is that, of course, they do have this very visionary leadership, and they have a very interesting place, whereas there's a lot of money available because it's a real estate driven economy that is in significant growth. So it means that a lot of the hospitality projects, I'm not saying that they don't need to make money, but what we do see is that often food and beverage, particularly, is a placemaker, is a strategic anchor within something that might be a billion, 10 billion US dollar development, and you need to bring people there and you need to make it a great place to live and work and so on. And therefore, you're not as focused about necessarily making the direct return from the
Mm.
operation, which
And
means that
and
you've got more cash available.
and presumably you can take more risks.
Yeah, absolutely. Take more risks, and risks are welcome, and failure is welcome particularly within the expat community. I think that people fail fast and to pick up that kind of entrepreneurial US type centricity, whereas I think, dare I say, here in the UK, we still have a lot of old baggage when it comes to failure, and I
Mm.
think failure sticks for longer. And
Yeah.
I personally think it's one of the things that holds us back quite a lot. But I mean, I think beyond that, some of the other trends that we're seeing, I think the pedaling back on customer facing technology for sure.
Mhm.
I think that we're starting to see that here in the UK. I think, we saw Leon last week coming out, or the week before, saying that they were pulling out a lot of their kiosk technology. I mean, we're starting to see this extensively in the US, where a lot of that technology is now kind of being replaced. And I really think we're focusing on invisible tech.
Mhm.
And where we are seeing a lot of growth, and I'm involved in a couple of very cool projects in the States where they're putting fully roboticized kitchens in place.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I think that's going to be where the trend will flip. We'll see robotics coming into the kitchen and reducing labor and creating streamlined approaches that way, and that we will almost see the hospitality being put back into hospitality.
And that's exactly it, isn't it? Is that hospitality, we rely on our people. Our people are our strength. And nobody goes to the pub to speak to a robot. But if we can take away those pain points that are in back of house so that we can better serve customers and their experience front of house, then that can only be a positive. So, I mean, I've been to Dubai a few times myself, and I am always pretty in awe of the sort of hospitality offering there. What are you seeing that you think just wouldn't work over in the UK, but that is working either in America or the Middle East?
I'm not sure about wouldn't work directly, but I think we're starting to see in other markets, particularly tourism focused markets, this kind of surcharges and upgrades coming into
Mm.
every day. I mean, I've started to see in the US and the Middle East that people are paying and bidding for certain tables in a
Right.
restaurant.
Wow.
So it's much to the same extent that you would choose your seat in a Ryanair flight for
Yeah.
£15 or 40 for an extra leg room. You pay for the better views. I think that's definitely something that's up and coming, and it will come here. But I'm not sure of seeing it to any extent here at the moment. But I think that's going to be quite interesting. I think more generally, this idea of, well, where does the value in our sector sit? And I think we're all saying, and the team at UK Hospitality, and we all recognize that hospitality plays this really significant role in societal kind of in society as being something above and beyond commercial reality.
Hmm.
Yet we're not seeing that support from government. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but let's be clear that in other parts of the world, they do recognize that. And
Yeah.
I think that we also are seeing that some very strange entities are buying and investing in our sector because they see this. And I think that they see the value from that placemaking, from creating places that people want to be. And that's not just real estate and hotels. I mean, it's a whole spectrum. And one of the things that we do a lot is work with ultra high net worths and high net worths. And at the moment, I think we've got 4 projects where it's people recognizing if they want to change the opportunities that people in their place have, and shift mindset about what their place is and where it sits on the world map. That hospitality is a way of doing that because it makes places more people more aware of their place, more connected to their place, and it creates an environment where that it almost energizes the society within a given city or country. And I think we're seeing, as I said, ultra high net worths doubling down on that, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think understanding the value of hospitality from all the different angles is something that I've seen done really well in certain states in America, and also around the world. If I was asking you now of all the places that you've been in recent years since the pandemic, where would you be telling me to go, and what would you be telling me to look out for?
I think for those people that are listening that haven't been to Dubai, tick it off. Like
Yeah.
I've talked about it, experiential beach clubs, homegrown talent. I mean, it's amazing. I spent quite a lot of time the summer before last living and building projects in Toronto and in Montreal and that part of Canada. And I mean, they're really calling that kind of little New York now. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of energy, particularly within that lifestyle hospitality space. And I would say it's well worthwhile going and looking at the kind of East Coast Canadian cities for sure.
That's music to my ears. I'm off to Toronto in 3 weeks' time. So
Well, you'll
great.
you'll love it, and I'll send you a list of some places to go.
Good.
Uh,
Thank you.
Dublin and Belfast, big surprise to me over the last year. We have visited on a couple of projects, and I mean, both of those cities are amazing. I mean, clearly Dublin's always been a cool place to go, but the amount of urban development and how that's kind of creating entrepreneurial chef-led experiences, that's been super cool. For me, Tallinn in Estonia, I think you know that a couple of our colleagues are there, and I spend a lot of time there. It's one of the biggest tech hubs in Europe. It's a creative hub. That means that there's a lot of money going into. I think a lot of people look at Estonia and think that it's Eastern Europe. I mean, it's much more aligned to the Nordics than it is a lot of Eastern Europe. And there's an incredible amount of pride. I mean, you really ought to go if you've not been. I think I've sent 5 or 6 people. Our good friend Paul Charity went this year, and I think everyone comes back feeling blown away by the experience. And you've got this whole new and old being blended together.
Mhm.
For me, I really want to get to Japan this year. I've still not been, and everyone tells me that it's ridiculous, given what I do, that I've not been to Japan.
I totally agree. And of course, there is a Propel study trip going there. I think it's November. So I will be signing up for that because how better to first see Tokyo than with a guided food and drink study tour?
Absolutely. And then I guess that I've not been to Vietnam, but as of this morning, I'm going to Vietnam in 2 months today. And I'm very much looking forward to going to Vietnam. Not so much the cycling at this point, given the undulations, as we call them. And for those of you that don't know, we just had to make the decision, well, Katie had to make the decision that Cuba probably wasn't the safest place to be going for a bike ride right now. And we're, of course, doing hospitality rides, which Katie set up and really is the most incredible supporter and fundraiser for both licensed trade charity and Only a Pavement Away, and has done remarkable things, raising well over £1 million, and should be commended incredibly for bringing such an amazing group of people together. But yeah, I think Vietnam will be cool, and I'm looking forward to lots of delicious food there for sure. So
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, we're going to have that. This is my third time going to Vietnam, and I can absolutely promise you that the food and drink in Vietnam is second to none. Well, thank you, James, and thank you for getting the little Cuba flip to Vietnam in there as well. Really appreciate your time. I've written down here book Tallinn, so that's the one tip I'm going to take away from this, and I look forward to catching up with you next time I'm in town.
absolutely, thank you.
Thanks, James.